की जय।
जय।
नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय।
जय।
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय।
जय।
श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय।
जय।
वृंदावन धाम की जय।
जय।
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय।
जय।
गंगा माई की जय।
जय।
यमुना माई की जय।
जय।
तुलसी देवी की जय।
जय।
भक्ति देवी की जय।
जय।
समवेता भक्त वृंद की जय।
जय।
और प्रेम आनंदे।
हरि हरि बोल।
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shami Iti Nama. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirbhishesha Nyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Krishna. We're studying, reading, and discussing Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 10th chapter, the branches of the Chaitanya tree. I'd like to welcome back Mother Vindyavali. She had a trip to India.
Krishna Prabhu, humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
And who would like to chant the Bengali?
Yes, permission, I can do that.
Please, yes.
Text 12. আচার্য রত্ন নাম ধরে বড় এক শাখা তার পরিকর শাখা.
Another big branch was Acharya Ratna, and his associates were sub-branches.
Text 13. আচার্য রত্নের নাম শ্রীচন্দ্রশেখর যার ঘরে দেবী ভাবে নাচিল ঈশ্বর.
Acharya Ratna was also named Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya. In a drama in his house, Lord Chaitanya played the goddess of fortune. Purport. Dramatic performances were enacted during the presence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the players who took part in such dramas were all pure devotees. No outsiders were allowed. The members of ISKCON should follow this example. Whenever they stage dramatic performances about the lives of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Lord Krishna, the players must be pure devotees. Professional players and dramatic actors have no sense of devotional service, and therefore, although they can perform very artistically, there is no life in such performances. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to refer to such an actor as Jatra Dale Narada, which means farcical Narada. Sometimes an actor in a drama plays the part of Narad Muni, although in his private life he is not at all like Narad Muni because he is not a devotee. Such actors are not needed in dramatic performances about the lives of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to perform dramas with Advaita Prabhu, Srivas Thakur, and other devotees in the house of Chandrasekhar. The place where Chandrasekhar's house was situated is now known as Vrajapattan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established the Sri Chaitanya Mutt at this place. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to accept the renounced order of life, Chandrasekhar Acharya was informed of this by Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and therefore he was present when Lord Chaitanya accepted sannyas from Keshava Bharati in Katwa. It is he who first spread the word in Navadip of Lord Chaitanya's accepting sannyas. Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya was present during many important incidents in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He therefore forms the second branch of the tree of Lord Chaitanya. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtang Stapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Shapandantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Chandrasekhar Acharya, he was residing in the Navadvip area, and as mentioned, he was present during the time at the place where Lord Chaitanya accepted sannyas, and he helped to arrange the ceremony. And Chandrasekhar Acharya also traveled often to Puri with the devotees from Bengal to attend the Rath Yatra festival and do service for Lord Chaitanya at that time. Also, later, he was also in Benares when Lord Chaitanya visited Benares and converted the Mayavadi sannyasis. He was there along with Tapan Mishra. So as Srila Prabhupada mentions, there was many situations where Chandrasekhar was present during the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And also mentioned was that Lord Chaitanya would participate and arrange for dramas at the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya. And following the line of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada also very much appreciated dramatic performances of the teachings and pastimes of Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya as well. Srila Prabhupada mentions himself that when he was a boy in Calcutta, he was participated in a play about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and do you know which part he played?
Advaitacharya or something?
Yes, he was a Advaita Acharya, and they practiced for a full year. Then, when the play was actually put on before an audience, he was surprised because people in the audience were crying because the players were not professional, but as Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, they were coming from a devotional background. So Srila Prabhupada very much appreciated the dramas. Sometimes he said that the plays are better than the books. I don't know if you've heard that before. and seeing the players. There used to be a branch of the ISKCON called the Vaikuntha players, were drama people. So the Vaikuntha players, and seeing them perform in New York, Srila Prabhupada invited them to come and with him around the world and present dramas in the different stops around the world. Particularly, he invited them to Bombay, and they performed for the Pandal programs in Bombay, which were very well received. And Srila Prabhupada very much appreciated that. So it's another aspect of devotional service. Krishna says in the Bhagavad, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi, yat juhosi, dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat karushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, whatever you eat, yat juhosi dadasi, whatever you give away in charity, yat tapasyasi, whatever austerities you do, whatever worship you do, then tat karushva madarpanam. Give that to me. So people put on plays in high schools and other circumstances, and the perfection of those plays are to do them for Lord Krishna. So I know we see here that Krishna Kirtan Prabhu is there on this. He also appreciates the performances of plays in his Krishna Village temple. Incidentally, when Srila Prabhupada came to Philadelphia in 1975 for the Ratha Yatra festival, he spoke for a brief period, and then after that, you might guess what was done right after that, after his speaking.
Short play.
Yes. There was a play, and it was well received by the audience. I had the fortune of being able to be there in that play, to participate in that play. So it's a good opportunity, another opportunity for devotional service. Comments, questions about this?
Yes, Prabhu. In the purport, Prabhupada say in order to perform a play, one have to be a pure devotee. So I know most of the people, devotees that are performing, they're not pure devotee. Isn't this that because you're practicing Krishna consciousness, they don't need to be like pure devotee?
Well, I hear what you're saying. So one thing, an interesting thing, Srila Prabhupada commented about, we were reading about Chandrasekhar and Tapad Mishra. He said that they were pure devotees, but they weren't they were still on the Kanishta platform because they weren't able to address the criticisms of the Mayavadi sannyasis. So there are different levels of pure devotee. Pure devotee just means someone whose purpose is simply to please Krishna. And then by practicing pure devotional service, one becomes elevated to the platform of Uttama Adhikari. But somebody can be a pure devotee, Kanishta Adhikari, and Madhyama Adhikari, or Uttama Adhikari. So at sometimes Srila Prabhupada would say, everybody in ISKCON, all of my disciples are pure devotees. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So the focus being that they're not doing it for they're not going to do it for getting some salary, put their name up, have their name up in lights. They're doing it only for pleasing Krishna. That's how I take it. Mother Sudevi.
Yes, Prabhu. A quick comment on the play, like you were talking in earlier days of ISKCON, the devotees will perform plays. And this one devotee, I think her name is Srimati Mataji, and she was telling this story about how she was in a play, and then she played Mother Yashoda's part, I think Krishna was in danger, maybe Kaliya's pastime, and she cried for Krishna, really with so much emotion, Krishna, Krishna. And then later on, Prabhupada asked, who was that devotee who played Yashoda? And he wanted to see her. And she came. And then Prabhupada told her, you should chant like that every day. Just with so much emotion. And Prabhupada was really, watching and liking the devotees perform. And so just good comment.
Yeah, that's just one example of Srila Prabhupada's usual appreciation for plays. When Srila Prabhupada came to New York in 1976, also he came. He attended the play there was a theater in the building, and he attended the play Age of Kali play, and there's pictures of Srila Prabhupada sitting there appreciating it. Also in 1975, at the opening of the Krishna Balarama temple, 1975 March, no, it was April. Srila Prabhupada insisted that there be a play for that opening, and the play was the liberation of Jarasandha, and devotees performed in that play, and Srila Prabhupada invited the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh, whose last name was Reddy. I don't remember his first name, but they were sitting by, and Srila Prabhupada was explaining to the chief minister and taking great delight in discussing and showing him the different parts of the play. And then when it came time for Bhim to defeat Jarasandha, how did he defeat Jarasandha? Do you remember?
Yes, he took him apart by his leg because he was joined together.
So Srila Prabhupada made that. He showed the chief minister, like taking a blade of grass and separating it in half, because you couldn't really do that. You couldn't really do that to a person in the play, tearing him in half. So that was they tried as best they could, but Srila Prabhupada showed that, and so he was great. He showed great delight in that play. Thank you. Anything else? So Lord Chaitanya is coming from Lord Chaitanya. All these things, everything comes from Krishna. Okay, next one.
Text 14.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. পুণ্ডরিক বিদ্যানিধি বড় শাখা জানি যার নাম লইয়া প্রভু কান্দিল আপনি
Pundarik Vidyanidhi, the third big branch, was so dear to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that in his absence, Lord Chaitanya himself would sometimes cry. Purport. In the Goro Gunadesh Dipika, Srila Pundarik Vidyanidhi is described as the father of Srimati Radharani in Krishna Lila. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore treated him as his father. Pundarik Vidyanidhi's father was known as Baneshwar, or according to another opinion, Shuklambara Brahmachari, and his mother's name was Ganga Devi. According to one opinion, Baneshwara was a descendant of Sri Shivaram Gangopadhyay. The original home of Pundarik Vidyanidhi was in East Bengal, now Bangladesh, in a village near Dhaka named Bhagia, which belonged to the Virendra group of Brahmin families. Sometimes these Virendra Brahmins were at odds with another group known as Radhiya Brahmins, and therefore Pundarik Vidyanidhi's family was ostracized, and at that time was not living and at that time was not living as a respectable family. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, one of the members of this family is living in Vrindavan and is named Sarojananda Goswami. One special characteristic of this family is that each of its members had only one son or no son at all, and therefore the family was not very expansive. There's a place in the district of Chattagram in East Bengal that is known as Hata Hajari. And a short distance from this place is a village known as Mekalagram, in which Pundarik Vidyanidhi's forefathers lived. One could approach Mekalagram from Chattagram either on horseback, by bullock cart, or by steamer. Which would you prefer? The steamer station is known as Anapunarna Ghat. The birthplace of Pundarik Vidyanidhi is about 2 miles southwest of Anapunarna Ghat. The temple constructed there by Pundarik Vidyanidhi is now very old and much in need of repair. Without repair, the temple may soon crumble. There are 2 inscriptions on the bricks of that temple, but they are so old that one cannot read them. There's another temple, however, about 200 yards south of this one, and some people say that this is the old temple constructed by Pundarik Vidyanidhi. End quote. All that was from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called Pundarik Vidyanidhi father, and he gave him the title Prema Nidhi. Pundarik Vidyanidhi later became the spiritual master of Gadadhar Pandit and an intimate friend of Swarup Damodar's. Gadadhar Pandit at first misunderstood Pundarik Vidyanidhi to be an ordinary pounds and shillings man, but later, upon being corrected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became his disciple. Another incident in the life of Pundarik Vidyanidhi involves his criticizing the priest of the Jagannath temple, for which Jagannath Prabhu chastised him personally by slapping his cheeks. This is described in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Antyakanda, chapter 10. Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur informs us that during his time, there were still 2 living descendants of the family of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, who were named Sri Harakumar Smriti Tirtha and Sri Krishna Kinkara Vidyalankar. For further information, one should refer to the dictionary known as Vaishnava Manjusha. Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So some of you are probably familiar with that pastime of Lord Jagannath. It was at the beginning of winter, and at that time, the pujaris, there's a certain day called, I think it's Odana Shashti, is that right? Odana Shashti. And that's when the pujaris taking care of the Lord Jagannath deities and Baladev and Lady Subhadra Maharani, they put a cloth, a chadar, over the deities during the time of their resting or at other times of the day. So they're supposed to get new cloth from the market and then wash it, because sometimes with cloth there's starch, and so they are supposed to wash it before putting it, placing it on the deities for their warmth. But this time, Pundarik Vidyanidhi noticed that the pujari, they hadn't washed the cloth, and it was still starchy. So in his mind, he didn't criticize them outwardly to their face. He just criticized them in his mind. So that night when he took his rest, in his dreams, Lord Baladev and Jagannath Prabhu came and they were slapping him to correct him for his mental offense. So in the morning time, he remembered the dream, and also he could tell somehow, perhaps he looked in the mirror and he saw that, his cheeks were all red. And seeing that, what do you think his emotional reaction was to that? Go ahead. Anybody?
Joyful.
Yes, he was very happy because he had been specifically corrected by Lord Krishna. So that's very instructive. We read in the last verse of the Shikshastakam, Ashlishyavapadaritam pinashtumam adarshanam marmahatang karotuva yatata tata vidudantu lampato mat prananata saso evara napara. Oh Lord Krishna, that you can do anything. You're always my worshipful Lord. You can do anything. You can chastise me or you can embrace me. So in this case, he was chastised by Lord Krishna and Lord Baladev, and that was a blessing for him. Srila Prabhupada was once asked, Srila Prabhupada, what should we do when you chastise us? How should we take it? And Srila Prabhupada replied, you should be very happy. That should be. So, because there's so many people in the world, but a disciple getting chastised or getting corrected, that's for our benefit, our teaching, so we can make progress in devotional service. Sometimes if our false ego becomes out of control a little bit, if someone corrects us or chastises us, then we think, oh, who is this person? Why should I don't like this. But our attitude, at least when it's coming from a devotee, then it can be, this is an opportunity for me to try to understand how to make progress, how to correct myself in devotional service. And here this Pundarik Vidyanidhi is a great example, because even though he's so elevated that he is the spiritual master, he became the spiritual master of Gadadhar Pandit, of the Panchatattva. Still, he received some chastisement from Lord Krishna, and he was very pleased by that. Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Questions, comments, additions?
And I think, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I think the Krishna chastises people whom he loves, because if someone is devotee, then only he likes to help the devotee to make more progress. If someone is not devotee, they don't even realize even Krishna chastises.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Very good. Text 15.
বড় শাখা গদাধর পণ্ডিত গোসাই দেহ লক্ষ্মী রূপা তার সমকেহ নাই।
Gadadhar Pandit, the fourth branch, is described as an incarnation of the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. No one, therefore, can equal him. Purport. In the Gaura Gunadesh Deepika 147.53, it is stated, Sri Krishna's pleasure potency, formerly known as Vrindavaneshwari, is now personified in the form of Sri Gadadhar Pandit in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami has pointed out that in the shape of Lakshmi, the pleasure potency of Krishna, she was formerly very dear to the Lord as Shyam Sundara Vallabha. The same Shyam Sundar Vallabha is now present in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as Gadadhar Pandit. Formerly, as Lalita Shaki, she was always devoted to Srimati Radharani. Thus, Gadadhar Pandit is simultaneously an incarnation of Srimati Radharani and Lalita Shaki. In the 12th chapter of this part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a description of the descendants or disciplic succession of Gadadhar Pandit. Text 16.
তার শিষ্য উপশিষ্য তার উপশাখা এই মতো সব শাখা উপশাখার লেখা
His disciples and grand disciples are his sub-branches. To describe them all would be difficult. So Srila Gadadhar Pandit wasn't married, but the disciples and grand disciples are his sub-branches. Similarly, we were speaking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur yesterday, and so he took his diksha from a person, the Janavadhara, from the disciplic succession of Janava Mata, the consort of Nityananda Prabhu. But she didn't have any children, and Nityananda Prabhu's other wife, Vasudha, had one son, but he did not have any issue. So when it says the descendants, mostly it's the disciplic descendants from disciples and grand disciples, not family descendants. Text 17.
বক্রেশ্বর পণ্ডিত প্রভুর বড় প্রিয় ভৃত্য একভাবে 24 প্রহর যার নিত্য
Varkeshwar Pandit, the fifth branch of the tree, was a very dear servant of Lord Chaitanya's. He could dance with constant ecstasy for 72 hours. Purport. In the Gaura Ganadesh Deepika 71, it is stated that Vakreshwar Pandit was an incarnation of Aniruddha, one of the quadruple expansions of Vishnu, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. He could dance wonderfully for 72 continuous hours. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu played in dramatic performances in the house of Srivas Pandit, Vakreshwar Pandit was one of the chief dancers, and he danced continuously for that length of time. Sri Govinda Das, an Oriya devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has described the life of Vakreshwara Pandit in his book Goro Krishnodaya. There are many disciples of Vakreshwara Pandit in Odisha, and they are known as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, although they are Oriyas. Among these disciples are Sri Gopal Guru and his disciple Sri Dhyana Chandra Goswami. So we see here that the dramatic performances were not only in the house of Chandrasekhar, but also in the house of Srivas Pandit. And during those performances, there was dancing going on, because Varkeshwar Pandit was dancing. So apparently those dramas were not just acting, but also must have been some musical activities also going on. So it was a big, very nicely done. Then I looked up this book, Gaura Krishnodaya, I couldn't find it anywhere using the internet. So maybe we could ask Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, who comes from Oriya. Maybe he could track that down, that book, which describes the life of Rakeshwar Pandit. What do you think?
Yes, Prabhu, but most I will get in Oriya.
Yes. Oh, it'll be in Oriya. So then you'd have to translate it, right?
Generally, it will be in Oriya. We can.
So then you'd have to translate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Gopal Guru Goswami is well known also in Odisha, along with G. Dhyana Chandra. Text 18.
আপনি মহাপ্রভু গায় যার নিত্যকালে প্রভুর চরণ ধরি বক্রেশ্বর বলে
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally sang while Vakreshwara Pandit danced. And thus Vakreshwara Pandit fell at the lotus feet of the Lord and spoke as follows. Text 19.
দশ সহস্র গন্ধর্ব মোরে দেহ চন্দ্র মুখ তারা গায়ে মুছি নাচে তবে মোর সুখ
O Chandramukha, please give me 10,000 Gandharvas. Let them sing as I dance, and then I will be greatly happy. Purport. The Gandharvas, who are residents of Gandharva Loka, are celebrated as celestial singers. Whenever singing is needed in the celestial planets, the Gandharvas are invited to sing. The Gandharvas can sing continuously for days, and therefore Vakeshwara Pandit wanted to dance as they sang. You might know that Narad Muni, previously, before he was the son of a maidservant, he was among the Gandharvas in the heavenly planets. So he wanted to show off his singing ability. So there was a meeting of various demigods, and to show off, he started singing prayers and songs glorifying different material personalities, some of the demigods and others. And when the demigods found out about it, you know what they did?
Yes, Prabhuji.
What did they do?
He has started glorifying his girlfriend.
What's that? What did the demigods do when they found out what he was doing?
He is, instead of started glorifying the Lord, he has started glorifying one of the Gandharvi. Means as he was he wanted as the girlfriend kind of. So he did the wrong thing. Yeah.
So then that's how he was cursed to become the son of a maidservant there by them. So we go back with Narad Muni. We can go back at least two previous births before he was the son of Lord Brahma. So even though the Gandharvas sing, their singing primarily is for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's kirtan. And the kirtan, that singing for the pleasure of the Lord, that's an inspiration for Vakeshwar Pandit, the associate of Lord Chaitanya, to dance. How could he dance for 72 hours? I don't know. I have no idea. That was his special ability given to him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the material world, back in the 40s, in this country, they used to have dance marathons. Do you know this? Yeah. Did they do it in India as well? No, I don't think so. Anyway, to see how long people could dance before they dropped Usually they drop after a day, 24, 34. I think the record was not up to 72 hours, before 72 hours. So here we have Vakeshwar Pandit dancing 72 hours for the pleasure of the Lord. So dancing, drama, singing, all for the pleasure of Krishna. Making prasadam also. Text 20.
প্রভু বলে তুমি মোর পক্ষ এক শাখা আকাশে উড়িতাম যদি পান আর এক পাখা
Lord Chaitanya replied, I have only one wing like you, but if I had another, certainly I would fly in the sky.
Text 21.
Yes.
Yes. পণ্ডিত জগদানন্দ প্রভুর প্রাণরূপ লোকে খ্যাত যেন সত্য ভামার স্বরূপ
Pandit Jagadananda, the sixth branch of the Chaitanya tree, was celebrated as the life and soul of the Lord. He is known to have been an incarnation of Satyabhama, one of the chief queens of Lord Krishna. Purport. There are many dealings of Jagadananda Pandit with Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Most importantly, he was the Lord's constant companion and especially took part in all the pastimes of the Lord in the houses of Srivas Pandit and Chandrasekhar Acharya. So a couple of things of note, if we didn't comment about it before, but we see that sometimes those who had apparently the female bodies in the time of Lord Krishna's pastimes are in male bodies in this time, and the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because the physical body is just an outward dress. It's not the real person. Sometimes we get carried away, but that's the first with the trying to identify with the material body is the important thing. But the first instruction of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is that you and I we're all eternal. And certainly the body isn't eternal. So that means we aren't the body. And he says, Vasangchi Janani Yata Vihaya. The body is just like an outward dress. You can change your dress. Today you're wearing one dress, and tomorrow you'll wear another dress. Srila Prabhupada was talking to the ambassador, Kenneth Keating, in Delhi, the ambassador from the United States to India. And Srila Prabhupada was talking about how when we greet each other, we don't say, hello, blue suit. We don't say that, no. Because the outward dress is not the important thing. The spirit soul. So Jagadananda was Satyabhama in that previous pastimes of Lord Krishna. And as you know, Satyabhama was which wife? I believe the third wife of Lord Krishna, is it not? First he married Rukmini, then
Jambavati,
then Satyabhama. So Satyabhama's father was Satrajit. And Satrajit had Shyamantaka jewel. Yes, and he when he wore that jewel, he looked like effulgence, like the sun god. And some people thought he was the sun god. So Lord Krishna said, oh, he's got this wonderful jewel. The best of all things, the best thing should be offered to the king, who at that time in Dwarka was Ugrasen, Maharaj Ugrasen. But Satrajit refused. He didn't want to give it up. He was attached to that Shyamantaka jewel. So later, he let his brother borrow the jewel, and his brother was out jauntily on taking a horseback ride and got attacked by a lion. And later, so he was killed by the lion, and then Jambavan, after the lion didn't take the jewel, but Jambavan found the jewel later and brought it to his home, and his little son was playing with it. So later, Satyajit then accused Krishna of, because he knew that Krishna had wanted the jewel, accused Krishna of killing his brother and taking the jewel, because he didn't know, they couldn't find where the jewel was. These things happen. Even Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is getting accused of murder and theft. See that? So in this case, yeah, he didn't do that. And so Krishna went looking, and he found, he tracked the situation to the house of Jambavan. And there he challenged Jambavan to the fight. And finally, they fought for a long time. Finally, Jambavan came to his senses and could understand that this person that he's fighting, he's not being able to defeat. This must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jambavan used to be an associate of Lord Ramchandra. So Ramchandra couldn't beat Lord Ramchandra, nor could he beat Lord Krishna. So he realized it took him a while, but he realized the situation and surrendered to Lord Krishna, and then as an offering gave him back the Chamantaka jewel, and what else?
His daughter.
Yes. Some people say that Jambavan was a what?
He's a bear.
Some people say. Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter to the artists, Radharani, Mother Radharani, and he said that no, he wasn't a bear. He was the king of them, but just because otherwise, how would his daughter be married to Krishna? She would be a bear also. Anyway, he made that comment. So, so he got the jewel back and gave it to Satyajit. And then later there was the whole intrigue, because Satyajit later was murdered. You know this. This is the father-in-law. When he gave the jewel back, when he gave the jewel back to Satyajit felt a little guilty. So he gave him his daughter, Satyabhama, just to compensate, which she was very happy. But then later, while Lord Krishna was away at the funeral of the Pandavas, Satyajit was murdered, and it was a whole thing. So that Satyabhama was mortified. That Satyabhama is Jagadananda Pandit. And he's famous for his Raghavere Jali, these special prasadam bags that he would give for Lord Chaitanya. And when Lord Chaitanya was talking about traveling to South India, Jagadananda Pandit wanted to make sure that he was taken care of very nicely. And Lord Chaitanya was unhappy because Jagadananda Pandit wasn't allowing him to practice the rules of sannyas, the renunciate, austerity rules of sannyas, because whenever he would perform austerities like lying down on the ground with minimal cover, Jagadananda Pandit would be unhappy, and Lord Chaitanya didn't like Jagadananda Pandit to be unhappy. So that was the function of Jagadananda Pandit, trying to see for the comfort of the Lord in all kinds of ways. He's the 6th branch. Do you know the other 5 branches that we followed so far?
Chandrasekharacharya.
Yeah, that's one we did today. Any others? We're at 6 already, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. Should we remember these?
we should
It
try.
might get a little tough as the numbers increase, but at least these first important ones we might want to remember.
But Pandit.
Krishna Kirtan, do you know any other the branches?
Bakreshwar Pandit.
Yes. We got Brikeshwar Pandit today. Any others?
Yeah.
The
Nityananda
four
Swami.
brothers.
Yes, that's from last week. Right. Srivas Pandit and his brothers. Yes. Any others?
First one.
There's one we covered today.
Vidyanidhi.
Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Yeah. That's 5. Which other one? We have one more. Come on. You know.
I have the book, I can tell. Acharya Ratna, did we?
You did Acharya Ratna. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. What?
Advaita.
Advaita.
Another Pandit. Advaita.
Gadadhar Pandit. Okay. That's good. Okay. Thank you. So I just wanted to comment. Is Kalpesh there today? Because he asked a question last week and I didn't get a chance to answer because we were focusing on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day, which I'd like to thank many devotees here that participated in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance festival. I think we came very close to preparing all the different items of the Bhog Arati song to offer to the Lord at noontime or at 11:30. So it was a little challenging because devotee went all the way to Ben Salem to pick up some things, and there was traffic jams and all. But most of those preparations, about 96% or 7%, were prepared. We didn't have. The only thing we were a little low on was we didn't have 12 sour preparations. We had maybe 6 sour preparations, but we'll work on it. We're working on it. Then last week, I think Kalpesh Prabhu, he wanted some discussion on the difference between a seeker and a believer. Is that right?
Yes.
That's what I remember. Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and I was my understanding of that was that's really it's something called a false dichotomy. False dichotomy means that they're not different, a seeker and a believer, in the sense that someone who says they're a seeker, they also have some beliefs, and someone who's a believer, they're also seeking, if you understand. For example, there's different categories of believers or seekers. So someone who's a seeker, how do they seek? One person, a category of seekers may think, well, I'm not going to accept what anybody else says. I'm going to find out on my own. So what that seeker is a believer. What are they believing in? They're believing in their own powers of discernment, that they'll be able to figure out what is the absolute truth. Yeah. So they're believing that. They have that belief. A believer may, just like Prabhupada gives the example of, if you want to know who your mother is, you can have different ways to find out, but a very simple and direct way is to, ask who your father is. If you want to know who your father is, the best way is to ask your mother, isn't it? Yes. And if you accept what she says and she's telling you the truth, then you know. Another approach would be to try to go around and ask everybody, I don't believe what my mom says. I would go around and try to ask everybody and do research about who is your father. You can ask hundreds and millions of people, and you might get somewhere, you may not. It'd be very difficult. So the believer, in this case, would be someone who accepts what the mother says, and the seeker could be one who doesn't accept what the mother says and tries to find out independently or in some other way. So devotees, people who accept Krishna's method of how to understand him, they're also seeking, even though they're believing in the path, believing in the way to understand who Krishna is by accepting Bhagavad Gita, still they're seeking. How are we seeking? We're seeking to do our devotional service just in such a way that Krishna will really be pleased. We're seeking to actually better understand Krishna's lotus feet and the process of devotional service. Therefore, the beginning of devotional service is called sadhan bhakti, which means practice. Practice means we're not very good at it. We got to get better. So how can we get better? By practice and by getting a little help from others who may have done the same thing. A person might say, well, I'm not going to listen to anybody else. I'm going to find out on my own. Well, the difficulty with that is that God is not, at least according to the Vedic scriptures, is not approachable by one's own figuring methods. Lord Brahma said, who's the head of the universe, said, Atapi te deva padad bhajadvayam prashado leshanu grihita evahi janatsi tatvam bhagavan mehim no. You know this verse. It means Krishna cannot be understood even by someone who tries to figure him out for thousands and thousands of lifetimes. He can't. But he's understandable by someone who seeks to please him and gets a drop of his mercy. So anyway, some comments on that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. But in this path of seeking, I think so you very well explained this whole points. In the path of seeking, many times I come with arguments where they say if we have to represent Krishna as our Supreme Godhead, people come across that, oh, there are several gods in this. There are so many Narayans, so many this kind of Narayans. This is not Krishna is not Narayan. Krishna is not that, So I mean, people kind of argue, and that is, there are so many truths.
Yes, everybody will accept. Who do they accept as authority? Who do we accept as authority? If we want to go to New York City, we can accept the Google Maps as authority, and we might get there. If we say, well, I don't accept anybody's authority, I'll just find out myself. I'll figure it out myself. Well, how are you going to do that? It'll be very difficult. I'll just kind of wander around. So therefore, Rupa Goswami says, or Lord Chaitanya said to Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Brahmite kon Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Bhakti Lata Bij. That we, after wandering throughout the universe, a fortunate person gets the mercy of Krishna by getting a bona fide teacher who can tell them how to get to New York, how to get back to Godhead. So that's, what is their method of understanding who is God? So we don't discriminate that a person from a Christian background or a Muslim background can't understand God. Certainly, yes, they can, but they have to follow their teachings very carefully. And Srila Prabhupada encouraged people who are Christians to be good Christians. But he would also say the essence of Christianity is not that you pray for bread, because that's love of bread. The essence is to develop love of God.
Mhm.
And we can talk. Let's try to understand better who God is. Let's see what the Vedic scriptures say about God, and let's see, compare it with the Quran or the Bible, and we can come to a mutual understanding. Yes, it's actually the same God. Although in the Vedas, there's a more nuanced and elaborate description, but it's the same God. In the beginning, there was the Word was God, and there was nothing, and God created everything after so many days, then rested. Same God. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a little more detailed description of the creation. So we appreciate all that.
Okay. Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you for explaining.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna. Thank you very much,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.